evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including review of personnel-related incident at Blazer Elementary School, including deliberation related to the superintendent's evaluation, and including appointment of the Director of Internal Audit, deliberation of the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, deliberation of negotiated contract for a prospective gift to the district, deliberation about commercial or financial information that the board has received from a business prospect, or deliberation of the offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect, and or to consult with legal counsel regarding pending or contemplated litigation or a settlement offer, or in a manner which the school district's legal counsel determines should be confidential, including consultation with legal counsel regarding contract-related matters associated with the selection of a partnering entity for Eastside Memorial High School, and consultation with legal counsel concerning the agreement between AISD and IDEA Public Schools in accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, Sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, and 551.071, respectively. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion and a second by Ms. Teisch.
The other Lori Moya.
Dr. Mathias, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Be happy to.
Oh, wait a minute. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes by all those present on the dais. Dr. Mathias, now would you now lead us?
Be happy to. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
The board will now move to closed session. We'll convene, and our first item of business is actually citizens' communication. So with no further ado, we will proceed with citizens' communication. This is the time we dedicate at each regularly scheduled board meeting for public comments. Under the open meetings law and the rules of this board, there will not be a deliberation between the persons at the microphone and the dais, but we'll be taking notes. In order to provide as many opportunities for input as possible within a limited time period, each speaker will be allotted 2 minutes with a maximum of 30 speakers allowed. As is the board's longstanding practice, speakers must have signed up in person and can only sign up for themselves. The board will not allow substitutions or yielding of time to others. As you come to the microphone, there's a device that will light up as you move through your 2 minutes of allotted time. When the buzzer sounds, please take the opportunity to sum up your comment so we can move on to the next person, and each person who has signed up will have the opportunity to address the board. You will be reminded that that your time has ended, and we would ask that you please wrap up quickly after that so that we don't go too long after your time ends. We ask that whether you come to give a complaint or praise, that you reference a staff member by position or by abbreviated last name, for example, Mr. D or Ms. A. Unless you are addressing the superintendent of schools or the board, then feel free to address us directly. The district is a local governmental body charged with serving the educational needs of all students, and board meetings must be focused on meeting this charge. All regular board meetings are televised and rebroadcast on AISD Cable Channel 22 and over the AISD website. We ask that audience members, whether speaking or not, please show respect for others at all times. The Communication Services Department provides a Spanish language translator for audience members who need assistance when addressing trustees or need assistance understanding comments made to trustees during citizens' communications. If you need this service, please speak with the interpreter. Crisol Gonzalez, Communications Specialist, will now repeat this message in Spanish.
Buenas noches a todos, Presidente Torres, miembros de la mesa directiva y Superintendenta Karstafen. Estoy aquí, soy Crisol González, traductora e intérprete del distrito. Estamos aquí para prestar servicios de interpretación a cualquier persona que quiera hablar ante ustedes. Gracias.
Thank you. Okay, first three speakers, Carolyn Sweet, Ken Zarafis, Montserrat Gerabay.
Good evening. I'm Caroline Sweet. I'm a 4th grade bilingual teacher at Metz Elementary in the Eastside Memorial Vertical Team. In November of 2011, I wrote a letter to the editor of the Austin Chronicle stating the following. Though I'm a teacher in East Austin, the district teacher of the year, and a resident of East Austin, I was never invited to have a conversation with anyone in the superintendent's office regarding the in-district charter school plan for Eastside Memorial High School and all the schools that feed into it. A week later, in an interview with KUT's Nathan Bernier, the superintendent was asked specifically about that part of my letter. She responded, "There are many ways for people to be involved with these conversations, and there is the responsibility on the individual to participate personally as well, and that they are always welcome at the table." But let's be honest, I was never welcomed at any table to discuss the future of our vertical team until this past April. The evaluation committee for potential partnering entities for Eastside was finally made up of parents, teachers, and community members all committed to finding the best educational opportunities for the children of East Austin. And though I was only invited as an alternate, it was such a change to see AISD welcome this diverse group of voices into a conference room to participate in such an important decision for Eastside. It was the first time real advocates for Eastside students were truly welcome at a table that mattered. So, instead of the list of criticisms and concerns that my fellow advocates and I have so often stated here at this podium, I hope that tonight you hear our gratitude. Thank you to the board members and the AISD staff who allowed and pushed for community participation. As the board moves forward with a decision for Eastside tonight, know that our community of educators and parents and concerned individuals thanks you for listening. I hope and believe that this is a new direction for AISD. I hope the evaluation committee has proven to you that there are many of us committed to doing what it takes to keep our schools open. We're still here, we're participating personally, and we hope to be continually welcomed at the table.
Thank you. Ken Zarefis, Montserrat Garibay, Steve Swanson.
Good evening, board member, Superintendent Karstarpin. Thank you. My name is Ken Zarefis. I'm president of Education Austin, the Teacher and School Employees Union for AISD. I too would like to thank you for the work and putting together a committee that was representative of the community and of teachers and of concerned partners. I think it's very important that we have that voice. But I'm here tonight to address a little bit around a phrase that I think is quite popular. It's all about the kids. I think it seems to be a qualifier that we seem to put onto a lot of our statements. We can do anything as long as it's about the kids, you know, and while that's a great statement, we want to make sure that we're following through and we're acting in deed as well as in word. So when we talk about Eastside Memorial, I think it's important that if we truly believe that it's about the kids, that we value every single child that walks through those doors, every one of them, regardless of their emotional, academic, social needs, that we value that. And that's what's been so beautiful about public education, is that we take everybody in. And that's what I'm excited about this plan, about this program with Johns Hopkins. We're going to take everybody in. If we value the community, if that's what we believe, if it's all about the kids, then we're going to value everybody coming into that school and finding a way to resolve and fix the problems that we see in the community. But it takes everybody, not just one entity, not just one partner saying this is what we need to do, but all of us coming together and sharing that. And this is not a new message from me. This is an old message. But it's a message that's so important with Eastside Memorial, that we have to have everybody bought in and participating with this. We have to build relationships that are valuable, that people believe in us, and we build the trust that our community will then place in us to make decisions that need to be made. Earlier this week, I got a letter or a card from one of my former students, and real quickly, one of my former students. I thought it was graduation from high school. I opened it up, I found it was graduation from college. It's because I built a relationship 8 years ago with this student. We have to build the same relationships with our communities that teachers build with their students. Let's support the committee's recommendation and go forward together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Montserrat Garibay, Steve Swanson, Vincent Tovar.
Hi, good evening, Superintendent and School Board members. My name is Montserrat Garibay, and I am the Vice President for Certified Employees with Education Austin. I was also part of the RFP Evaluation Committee for Eastside Memorial High School. As a member of the committee, I would like to convey to you that our choice was unanimous, and I am very hopeful that you will support the recommendation. I was personally supportive of our choice because it had a very strong implementation and a supportive solution. The curriculum was aligned with the national standards and what teachers are already doing at Eastside Memorial. Their four-pillar model of transformation is outstanding, and will give the teachers a strong support system. For the first time in many years, I can honestly say that AISD has done an outstanding job engaging the community in the process to find a partner that is outstanding for Eastside Memorial. The comments I heard from the community on Saturday, April 20th, when the two entities presented were very positive and the community was very pleased. Thank you for that. It's time for us to roll up our sleeves and start working in collaboration with this entity to make sure Eastside Memorial stays open and provides 21st century education for our students. I will leave you with these words from the Eastside Memorial students. No one can be reduced to a number on a page. Each one is unique. It's a unique and precious individual. And each of the students deserves an opportunity to discover his and her unique gifts and talents and to learn in high levels. Please, let's support Eastside Memorial. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Swanson, Vincent Tovar, Cynthia Valadez.
Good evening, Steve Swanson, and I'm here to express my appreciation and support for the hard work of the Evaluation Committee and the direction that the board's given these people to value people coming together to truly work together. I must say that the presentations that I heard several Saturdays ago by the proposers overwhelmed me because they were the first time I'd heard technical support being provided for a community to truly come together and meet the needs of our kids, something that you found in our state statutes. So I am grateful that we're actually locking into what we should have been doing for a long time, which is helping our schools walk together with their community to truly meet the needs of people. I was a little startled this morning when I woke up to the radio and there's being some ambivalence expressed by several people about the validity of the process and the solution, and I was a little bewildered about that, and then I read about it in the paper. So I would like for you to know that when people are empowered and have the influence to create a process, that we ought to be called to be accountable for the results of the process. So that's what we're here tonight. We started a process, created a process. You've got community support for it, and it brings in some folks who I believe will provide the technical support to help guide the school in order to have a successful environment. And oh, by the way, comply with the statutes of the state of Texas. So I'm here in support of these young people at the school and the parents and the community members who have worked so hard, and for the board members now who have come together, and as I understand it, because I saw it on an email, unanimously stood up for the kids and the teachers of that school. Don't stop doing that.
Thank you. Vincent Tovar, Cynthia Valadez, Gavino Fernandez Jr.
My name is Vincent Tovar. Good evening, trustee, superintendent. I'm a proud Go Valley parent of a 6-year-old. And it just happens 6 years ago, it was my first time speaking here. But I was speaking and thanking in advance board members to save Webb Middle School. Now, 6 years later, I want to thank you in advance for, saving Eastside and working all this time to help support Eastside. Thank you for putting forth great efforts to work for an RFP evaluation committee, working on a fast timeline, and respecting the community's wishes to move forward. As the 44th, as the 44th alternate for the parent piece of the evaluation committee, I knew it was going to be hard to get parents to commit to this time, but how wonderful it would be to be able to move forward and encourage other parents to be a part of efforts like these and to be part of this process that can be respected tonight by all of you on the school board. The potential for all of us, parents, students, staff, trustees, and community members to work together was reflected in the RFP process. On Tuesday, April 23rd, the committee, almost 2 weeks ago, we decided on a great option. In the past 19 months, which is more than half of the 30 months that my 2-year-old has been alive, we've grown as a community that will work together for the long term. And just last Thursday, Pride of the East Side endorsed the bond. A 9-0 vote from you, the school board, will honor all of these efforts of an innumerable amount of East Side supporters. A unanimous 9-0 vote directly demonstrates full support for the East Side community. And how wonderful would it be to tell students tomorrow morning before they take more end-of-course exams that the school board voted 9-0 in support of moving forward. Thank you so much for working to save East Side. Let's continue working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Valadez, Gavino Fernandez, Alan Weeks.
Good evening. Eastside Memorial is once more at a crucial crossroads in its educational history. Although this campus has struggled with historical, financial, and educational neglect, administrative instability, and failed attempts to commit to and fully implement a specific program, you now have an opportunity to vote to keep our neighborhood school, the only high school that we have in District 2, open during the upcoming academic year. In support of our Eastside families, students, and staff, we urge you to vote today in support of Johns Hopkins as our Eastside partner. LULAC has long supported and was founded on the beliefs in public education and expansion of civil rights, and in the need to build capacity in our community and in our systems. LULAC worked for the expansion of the medical program in East Austin, and for the chance to grow our culturally competent scientists, researchers, doctors, nurses, promotoras, and other healthcare providers that will have the skills necessary to succeed at the University of Texas and its future medical school. Those decades of neglect can be erased with an AISD investment to all our Eastside vertical teen campuses by making sure that our L and all students have the highest quality teachers with their same shared history, that our bilingual and special education programs are implemented with fidelity according to best practices, and that both parents and staff benefit from culturally competent capacity building and professional development. Only by integrating this holistic approach to addressing the needs of our students, families, and community can that huge academic gap be finally closed and career opportunities for success be achieved. Don't be swayed by those who doubt that success can be achieved by your decision today. Their short-sightedness and fears must not be taken into consideration. You've been elected to serve as leaders in our school district. Exercise that leadership and vote for the Johns Hopkins Plan for Success endorsed by our community, the evaluation team, and our Eastside students and families. Together, we can make a difference. Vote Johns Hopkins, vote for Eastside. Thank you very much. Y sí se puede.
Gavino Fernandez, Alan Weeks, Tony Rayner.
Good evening, board. My name is Gavino Fernandez, and I come to speak to you as LULAC District 12 Director and Coordinator of El Concilio, Coalition of Mexican American Neighborhood Associations. And I strongly want to urge the listening audience to go out and vote. Early vote is going on. Tomorrow is the last day for early vote. And then Saturday, May 11th, is Election Day. Regardless of your position on the bonds, what's more important and rises to our level of importance within LULAC District 12 is that we ensure that as many people in our communities go out and vote and cast their vote. Now, having said that, since this bond proposal came out, we have canvassed our neighborhood association and we've canvassed our councils within LULAC District 12. And the conclusion has come for them is to oppose the bonds and to strongly encourage our people, especially those living in East Austin, that are facing not gentrification, genocides, that this particular bond, if it passes, will accelerate the number of Mexican Americans and African Americans that live in East Austin. I received this today. I haven't opened it. I'm going to open it right now, because what this is going to tell me, if this bond passes, how much I am going to be paying on my home. And according to this, I will be paying $4,400 on a 900 square foot home next to the Holly Power Plant, in a community where Allen is going to be closed, in a community where we should be talking right now of schools are under capacity, because Allen is the first one, and we always get the short end of the stick. Alan is the first one, and there's more to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Alan Weeks, Tony Rayner, Amanda Austin.
Good evening, Superintendent Karstafen and members of the Board of Trustees. My name is Alan Weeks. I'm the Director of Austin Voices for Education and Youth. And I just thought it was about time to come and thank you for allowing Austin Voices to be part of the big picture of community engagement going on in the East Side Memorial Vertical Team. It has been a true pleasure to work with great teachers and parents, students, and community members over the last year. The Vertical Team is working together in many, many ways. And from our angle, since March of 2012, we've held well over 100 meetings throughout the Vertical Team campuses. Some of these have been large meetings in school cafeterias, some of them in apartment complexes, restaurants, or libraries. We've also had many one-on-ones with community leaders and volunteers, all with the goal of building a common vision of educational excellence for children in the 11 neighborhoods feeding Eastside Memorial. A lot has been accomplished in that time. 4 of the schools we've worked with set goals around identified areas of challenge and have done great things. Martin Middle School, for instance, has worked diligently on bullying this year. One of the things they identified last spring. We've had community dinners. We've also gathered together to strengthen CACs and to weigh directions around STEM as a Vertical Team signature theme. And the STEM work involved teams from every campus, and we made significant progress in developing a common Vertical Team-wide strategy around STEM that will continue. In March of this year, we brought together a team of 30 people, half from schools and half from the community, for a retreat to advance strategic planning for the Vertical Team. And I'd like to read you the Eastside Memorial Vertical Team mission statement that was created during that retreat. I think it's great. The Eastside Memorial Vertical Team, a culturally and linguistically diverse network of neighborhood schools that strives for educational excellence and equity of outcomes, will work together as a team to educate students to be resilient leaders, prepared for success in a rapidly changing world. We will do this by fostering and honoring partnerships between families, schools, and community, cultivating a school environment of acceptance, empathy, and compassion, almost done, preparing students for real-world careers through a wide variety of experiences, including
Your time is ended. Please
STEM.
wrap up.
Thank you very much.
Tony Rayner, Amanda Austin, Monica Guzman.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I want to say first that as a member of the RFP Evaluation Committee, I was a little nervous, but the committee was a diverse and well-educated, well-read group of people who thoughtfully evaluated the 5 proposals, and I think you can vote on their choice with confidence. The process worked. Thank you for coming to the community and finding people to participate in this process. I think it was very valuable, and the students deserve it. I think that they're wonderful. They are so full of heart. Sorry, I was sick last week. Anybody that showed up on the 20th for the presentations by the 2 finalists saw an art display that had this little paper here with quotes from the artists. Juan M. was talking about his art, that he was reminded of the school motto for Green Tech High School: trust, respect, and responsibility. Another one on the athletic goals of one team, one mind, with one goal, win. They talk over and over again about pride, family, strength of character. These students can do amazing things if we stop tripping them and let them gain momentum.
Your time is ended.
Thank you
Please.
very much.
Thank you. Amanda Austin, Monica Guzman, Daniel Gay.
Good evening. I'm excited to be standing up here tonight in support of the decision presented before you to choose Johns Hopkins University as the partnering entity for Eastside Memorial. You've already heard and will continue to hear testimonies from Eastside parents and community members, but unfortunately you might notice one piece of voices is being missed, and that's mostly teachers. They're still continuing to feel intimidated to speak out even in support of their school, but I just wanted to make sure that people understood that their lack of speaking out is not due to a lack of endorsement for the decision of the people that I've spoken to who work at Eastside Memorial. They are in support of Johns Hopkins University. As we move forward, a new page is turned in this journey to save Eastside Memorial. I hope that we see less intimidation and more collaboration with teachers at Eastside Memorial. After over a year of long meetings past midnight, commitment to true community building, and relentless dedication to saving Eastside Memorial, we're finally at a place of moving forward. I highly recommend you to vote in favor of the RFP committee's recommendation to choose Johns Hopkins University as the partnering entity for Eastside Memorial. A vote against or an abstention from the vote to support Johns Hopkins is a vote to close Eastside. And we need to show that the community in action with the board can save Eastside. Pause up, show your pride. We won't let them close Eastside. Thanks.
Thank you. Monica Guzman, Daniel Gatch, and Megan Buchanan.
Excuse me. Board of Trustees, I was at the Eastside Memorial High School community meeting on Saturday, April 20th. I arrived early and stayed late. Johns Hopkins Talent Development Secondary had my vote that day. During conversation throughout the meeting, immediately after, and since then, I came to find Johns Hopkins had the support of the majority of those in attendance. The Austin Chronicle even mentions it in today's issue. Quote, the evaluation committee took Baltimore into account in their deliberations and still backed Johns Hopkins. As a member of Pride of the Eastside and Eastside Memorial PTSA, I'm a new member, I fully support the RFP process, and I fully support the RFP committee. Now that they've made their decision, their recommendation, it is time for all of us, students and families, faculty and staff, the community as a whole, to support that recommendation and support Eastside Memorial. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for everything each of you has done to bring us to that point. I encourage you, I beseech you to continue that supportive role with a unanimous vote for Johns Hopkins. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Getch, Megan Buchanan, and Mike Corwin. And I apologize if I mispronounced you.
Not a problem. Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Karstarfin. My name is Daniel Gatch, and I am a second grade teacher at Go Valley Elementary, a member of Pride of the Eastside, a supporter of Eastside Memorial and its students. I just want to take a moment to thank the board for its vision and leadership in bringing forth an authentic and transparent process that actually includes the Eastside community it intends to affect. The community has been behind this process from the beginning, and we fully support the tireless efforts of the RFP committee in its decision to pick Johns Hopkins as Eastside's partner entity. With this process, we now have a partner who is willing to work with the school and community and presents a viable solution that the community is behind. I've also heard some reservations with the program itself and its results in schools in Baltimore, and I think that's a bit of an unfair apples to orange comparison. In fairness, East Austin is not Baltimore. Baltimore sadly deals with some much harder issues around the areas of violence and drugs that is not as prevalent here in Austin. I can also say as a native of the East Coast that Johns Hopkins is a name that's taken very seriously in education circles, and there is no way that a university of that prestige would lend its name and resources to a program it felt could not handle the task of turning around schools. I am fully confident Johns Hopkins will be equal to the task of working with and helping support Eastside Memorial. I also want to take a quick moment to quickly thank the board and everybody who has been involved in the bond process. I know it's a monumental task to put together a comprehensive bond like the one currently up for election, and even more impossible task to make everybody happy. I just wanted to say that I appreciate everybody's efforts on the bond, and I fully support our students and schools getting everything they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Buchanan, Mike Corwin, Luke Meskowitz.
Hello, trustees and Superintendent Karstafen. I'm here on behalf of our Eastside students who met today, but they couldn't be here because they're testing all week. They had a few messages. The first is they urge you to keep their school open by approving the RFP's recommendation. The second is they're very excited about Johns Hopkins. Some of them attended the April 20th meeting, and we're very pleased with what they heard. They're excited about the name and what else they've researched. The third is they wanted me to invite you to our Panther Pride Festival, which is coming up on May 18th. They made some flyers that I have for you all. The theme that they selected this year is EMVT, We Are Family, and they've designed a family tree with all of our logos. So we want you to come and celebrate with our family and spend the day with us. It was a lot of fun last year, and we saw a few of you out there. So hope to see a few of you again, or all of you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike Corwin, Luke Metzkowitz, Claire Roeder.
Hi, my name is Mike Corwin. I'm a parent of an AISD first grader. I stood up here, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I expressed my optimism for the future of Eastside Memorial, and I only feel that much more optimistic standing before you here today. The recommendation for Johns Hopkins was overwhelmingly supported by the selection committee, has huge support among teachers, was the overwhelming favorite that came out of the community hearings, and has a lot of enthusiasm from the students. And I think that confidence going into the future will actually also contribute to better outcomes academically for Eastside. So the only question before us today is, why is there even any debate about this? I think it's a shame that I think the people who I think went through this process in good faith are now facing the situation of having to hit a moving target. I think even more confusing, I think, are the reference to Commissioner Williams' requirements when no one has seen any requirements. No one has seen anything on paper. No specifics have been advanced. All we really know is what we have heard coming out of conversations between the superintendent and the commissioner. And frankly, at this point, with this school's future on the line, with these students' future on the line, I really wish that those discussions were a matter of public record, because it would be very important to understand what is being talked about in the background here. Again, I have to ask, as I have a number of times, what purpose does it serve to have these kinds of moving targets, these vague requirements brought up again to needlessly pressurize this whole situation over and over and over again? Eastside needs full support, not backroom shenanigans. Tonight, the board has a fantastic opportunity, a chance to demonstrate real support for Eastside Memorial by voting for the proposed entity, and to send a message to the TEA that we have absolute full confidence in a bright future for Eastside Memorial. Thank you very much.
Luke Metzkowitz, Claire Roeder, Larry Amato.
Dr. Karstafen, trustees, good evening. My name is Luke Miskevich. My wife and I have 2 daughters who attend Metz Elementary, also a proud member of Pride of the Eastside. I strongly support the process AISD has gone through to select a new partner for Eastside Memorial, and I'm hopeful the board will vote to move forward in partnership with Johns Hopkins University. I was excited to read that individual scoring, community feedback, and committee consensus all converged on the same new partner. I understand the administration has concerns over performance, and I'll defer to those who know more about Baltimore Talent Development High School and the more than 50 other high schools who partner with Johns Hopkins. But we need to hear those concerns in the proper context. I understand the administration has concerns over unmet needs within the rest of the vertical team, but to that let me speak. Allison, Brooke, Govalle, Metz, Ortega, Zavala, and Allen were not the problem. Martin Middle School is not the problem. I think we stopped celebrating these schools when we needed to be rebuilding a working vertical team. That's within your power. Our last approach fragmented our vertical team. The proposal before you tonight will bring us together by giving our students a high school to work towards instead of another one to compete with. The bottom line is clear. This is our best shot. This is our path forward out of this mess and into a period of sustained growth, improvement, and stability. Thank you.
Claire Roeder, Larry Amato, Maria Isabel Rios.
Good evening. Thank you to the RFP committee for all their hard work in narrowing down candidates to partner with Eastside Memorial to help keep the school open and thriving. Thank you to the greater AISD community who participated in this public and democratic process in choosing the best candidate for the job. I'd like to thank the board members for pointing us in a positive direction. I'd also like to thank Ms. Bradley specifically for looking at the big picture and realizing that there's more to saving Eastside than just working with the current student body. Ms. Bradley was gracious enough to speak with me on the phone the other day when she explained that we need to focus on Martin Middle School that partially feeds into Eastside. I applaud the full scope that she's looking at. It reminds me of an anti-racism conference I recently attended. I met a woman there who works with the Rosa Parks Foundation, serving youth from my hometown of Detroit. So the Rosa Parks Foundation adapts the Native American concept of looking sustainably into the future for 7 generations, but the Rosa Parks Foundation looks forward 3 generations, but they also look back 3 generations. So in this spirit, we honor the past in Johnston, we nurture the present, and we prepare for the future of Eastside Memorial High School. Thank you to the board for committing to this long-term beautiful charge. The Talent Development Secondary Program of Johns Hopkins has 20 years turnaround, positive turnaround in middle schools, and Johns Hopkins University has been around for 130 years, serving academic needs of college students. How exciting that we are all working together through the generations to do the right thing by our Eastside high schoolers and our Austin ISD family. I'm filled with hope and gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Amaro, Maria Isabel Rios, Marina Herrera. Larry Amaro.
Good evening, President Torres, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Christophin. Just want to point out, first of all, that there are hundreds of entities out there in Texas and in the country that did not come to Austin. They didn't want to. Why? Because of the way this board has treated the previous entity at Johnston. And I don't blame them because of what's happened. Now, we've been through this road before. We tried to get Harvard Labs to come out to us. And they're similar to what's being brought now, but Harvard Labs was going to bring their resources. They're going to bring money. They're going to pay almost for all that they're bringing. Whereas here, we're expected to pay for this Johns Hopkins program. Well, actually, I'm sorry. It's not a program. They themselves said it's not a program. So what are we paying for? They claim to be their advisors, so great. We've gone through that road before, too, because we, in the 2000s, we went through a process of getting all the resources to Johnston so it wouldn't close. And yet, the commissioner did close it, and we know why, and we're down that path right now. Some of these people here tell us that the school's doing great. The problem's not in elementary and middle school, but we know different. We know that we have to get these kids in elementary school and middle school to come up to Johnston. So by the time that we get there, that they get there, they'll be in a 9th grade reading level, not 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade reading level. And that's where the problem's at. So right now, what do we have? We've cut out the main ingredient, the K through 8th, that we had with the idea of public schools. And the idea of public schools is working, getting the kids ahead a year to 2 years in advance of their grade levels. And yet we cut them off, or the 5 members of the board here that voted to cut them off did. So with this new non-program that we're bringing in, we're just paying for someone that's going to be here for a few years and then leave. Commissioner, help us out, bring the right entity.
Please wrap up. Maria Isabel Rios, Marina Herrera, Dan Arellano.
Good evening, board, superintendent. Tonight, I stand here as a Johnston High School graduate, as a tax-paying citizen, as a promotora from Dove Springs, and as a mother, to share my ideas in regard to our beloved Eastside Memorial High School. Our students deserve a chance to succeed. I want to ask you to make the right choice to our Eastside Memorial community and choose Johns Hopkins University as a partner to run the Eastside Memorial High School. I truly believe that our students deserve this opportunity, and it's actually long overdue. With this collaboration, our special education and ELP population will succeed. I think what I'm gonna say it's perfect for what just happened right here. This week, I learned something about the meaning of a root, of a word, the word peace. I learned about the word peace. I learned the root of that word, and in Latin, it's a button. You know what a button does? It brings clothes together, like when you tie your shirt or you tie your sweater or you tie something. And I think this is perfect. Peace is what we need in this community. It's long overdue. You just saw what happened. We need peace for our kids. We need to make the right choice and just keep going. You heard all the opinions of many people, but the community overwhelmingly said in the process that they support Johns Hopkins. So I think our kids deserve that. They deserve a great opportunity. Thank you.
Marina Herrera. Marina Herrera and Dan Ariano.
Good evening. My name is Marina Herrera, and I'm a proud parent of an Eastside Memorial High School sophomore. I sent an email out earlier, and it was a little late. I had some problems, but y'all will get it, and it's a lot longer than 2 minutes. But as you read my email later, I want you to take into consideration that I wrote that email with nothing but love in my heart for these children. We've been in this district for 2 years, and I have seen these children grow. I've seen what they're capable of, and they are wonderful. If you get a chance to know them, to really get to know them, you can see exactly what they're capable of. All they need is some love and support. I really believe that Johns Hopkins is the way to go right now. Unfortunately, we did not get more people, as Mr. Amato said, more people that did not come out. But what we did get is what we have to choose from. And Johns Hopkins was undoubtedly the best partner or the best option for us to partner with. Don't give up on our kids. We need to love them. We need to support them. We need to stand beside them and fight for them. If we don't fight for them, who else will? Y'all were elected to have their best interest at heart, to do what's best for them. Look at them. Listen to them. You can see their videos. The band played at South by Southwest. You can see that video. Look at these children. And you cannot tell me that you cannot look at these children and think, oh no, let's shut them down, or let's get something else going. Johns Hopkins is the way to go. So I was not prepared for this, but I am fully supporting Johns Hopkins, and I support the RFP committee, and I support this entire process. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dan Ariano.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Dan Ariano. I am with LULAC Council 650 and also the president of the Johnston Memorial Committee. I am not opposed to the Johns Hopkins committee that's obviously going to be voting for it, but what I am concerned is, like Gavino, is the cost to the taxpayer. How much is this boondoggle going to cost us? We had a perfectly good charter school in place that was awarded $23 million, and here we are removing them, throwing them out like dust from your house. The concern of mine is the cost to the taxpayers, and I'm really amazed how y'all were able to make a decision in less than a month when it took the other committee over a year to decide on idea. Now, one charter school to me is just like another charter school. One of the comments was that, well, we have this charter school coming from the Valley. Well, at least they were from Texas. Well, now we have another charter school that's not even from Texas. So I'm glad you guys saw the wisdom in your decisions, because I want to be able to find out what the consequences and cost of dollars will it be to the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes citizens' communication. At this time, I guess we'll turn it over to you, Dr. Karstafen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, trustees of the board. Tonight, you have an item before you for potential action and discussion. or discussion and potential action. It is regarding the potential approval of an authorization to negotiate a contract with a partnering entity for Eastside Memorial High School. While I know there have been many discussions with the Texas Education Agency, all of which have been documented, three members of this board participated in the very first critical piece of documentation and communication from the commissioner to the Austin Independent School District. These trustees, our board officers, sat in the meeting, Trustee Matthias, Torres, and Hinojosa, to get the guidance from the commissioner, and it bore witness by having our members of our delegation present as well. Part of what we found is that guidance from the TEA has not changed at all to date. If anything, it's been the most consistent guiding, although verbal. I agree that it's verbal, but we all heard it, and we've all consistently been reminded of it as we've gone through this process. But we have worked, even though there's a lot of questions still out there about how this may all turn out, we have worked with trustees to carry out the board's direction to terminate the agreement between AISD and IDEA Public Schools for the end of this school year, while also working to honor our state required component of the reconstitution plan, which means that we have to find a partner to replace our former partner for Eastside Memorial. There's many things that have happened in between, and all those things have been documented on TV as well. But for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to pick up from March 7th. And on March 7th, the district issued the RFP for an external partner to lead the school improvement work for Eastside Memorial High School. That was done right before spring break, and we pushed out the recruiting period for that by doing the appropriate and legal posting for those things. But in the end, AISD had 5 proposals submitted. Of those 5, to be able to vet those 5 proposals, we did a public process in securing a structure for an evaluation committee. We tried to do some of it as an RFP work group, which included some trustees, but we did some of that work in a board meeting as well to get the final details sorted out so we could get moving on ensuring the evaluation committee was in place and working as quickly as possible to meet the timeline that the board had approved just shortly before that. A 13-member RFP evaluation committee made up of representatives that included teachers, parents, community members, administrators, staff from the Eastside Memorial Vertical Team, and some central administration staff did score each of these proposals. Tonight, and I should just say, I want to thank the evaluation committee and all the folks that met countless hours, and it was a real commitment. Countless hours, and did it to the requirements that we have for the bid process. So there were no leaks and people weren't sharing information. We really went about it in a very professional way, and that makes all the difference to ensure that the process went well. Now tonight, there is a partnering entity that the evaluation committee did recommend to the administration for us to bring forward to the board to talk about tonight, and what the administration will also need from the board, because you gave us direction that we had to come to the board before we started any process for negotiating a contract. Now, during the evaluation committee, the committee members reviewed information provided by both of, or all of the proposals, but they did research any available information about the entities, and they did make attempts to contact the various references. And depending on which group it was, some were, we had more information or less information. Some we had references called back, some we did not. They did not call us back, but in the end, there were 2 that came forward with the highest scores. Talent Development Secondary, and that's a program of Johns Hopkins University, and American Institutes for Research. Those were the 2 that were invited to make oral presentations to the RFP Evaluation Committee the day before we did the community public meeting on April 20th. And community members had the opportunity. I was there. They submitted questions. I want to thank Austin Voices on like in the real moment that we're trying to collapse and get as many questions answered in groups as possible so that categories of questions were done. So thank you, Alan Weeks and others if you're still here. And then we put those responses together. If you look in your agenda item as an attachment, it's starting on page right after the page 10. It shows both their presentation, but what we did was we transcribed question and answers, and as it related to the best of our ability to the areas of their slide presentation, so that the board, if you were not there, and the public, if you were not there, got a real sense of kind of what they were representing. We also have it for AIR, but we did not post it with this agenda item because in the end, once this process got to this point, of those 5 proposals received by the district, the committee and believes that talent development secondary is the most qualified of those 5 proposers. And I think there was someone at public comment who said, you know, what we did get is what we have to choose from. And of the 5, I think hands down, we're all in agreement that talent development secondary is our very best option at this point. So we do think that they were by far the most responsive to the requirements set forth in the RFP, and the committee acknowledged that while all things weren't perfect, and not all the performance requirements set forth in the RFP were necessarily met, there were a number of strengths and some weaknesses, but a number of strengths that were worth noting. And what I wanted to draw your attention to is the attachment in the agenda item that they put together and was summarized. It's on page 9 for the strengths and page 10 for weaknesses or offsetting considerations. If you're not looking at it, I want to highlight some of the things that were strengths. One of the first things that was said was that overwhelmingly the community did come forward, even in their comment cards, and it was clear that they were the front runner of the 2 finalists, and that there is community support for this this particular entity. That in addition to this, they did outline, if you kind of look at the PowerPoint at the same time, they do have a methodology, a framework, if you will, for how they go about working on reform. They work toward a more comprehensive solution and some strategies that are structured. They have a freshman seminar that people resonated toward to help kids transition into high school that had a career and technology component, a professional component to help students start thinking about their futures as well as academics. They are connected with Johns Hopkins, but we know that Johns Hopkins isn't running it necessarily. So, but the good news is that it is associated with a university. I do believe if we have some challenges, you have another line of defense to go to, since they do openly affiliate themselves with the university. They had other national partnerships that they talked about in some of their school communities that we think were similar, like communities and schools. That's someone they know how to work with. So if we have those kinds of connections, so I think philosophically, it's more aligned. It was certainly more aligned than AIR. And they did talk a lot about an implementation plan that would get, in their opinion, them off to a good start with the design. Now, on the backside, they talked about some other considerations. And I know trustees have raised some of these too. I heard a public comment about the cost, and it is true, the performance piece, where they have their flagship school, isn't as clear and straight as we would like for it to be for a partnership. But these were things that were raised to challenge the negotiating team to try to get the cost down, that the performance data didn't meet the criteria for what we need to do to ensure that they're performing at a level that's better than. similar students, yeah, it means high school, similar demographics and that things, of the same grade level configuration, given our accountability system in Texas. They also talked about ensuring or looking at the data piece. There was a lack of data that supported the longer term sustainability. They mentioned that thing I said about their flagship piece. Yeah, they could be facing a cancellation with the contract there. It's my understanding that things are kind of getting back on, but you know, they're not clearly out of the woods. And that, and while I know they said that there's a lack of Texas experience, we know that they are in Texas. So this one, I don't know if it's a positive or a negative just yet, but we know that they're in Texas. They're working in San Antonio, for example. And so they do have a sense of what Texas accountability is like. Now, we don't know what all that performance, those performance pieces are like. We did reach out to some of their references. We did not get callbacks. We're still working on that. There's some diligence that we still need to do. But given what you have in the 5 proposers, make no mistake that we agree as an administration that talent development secondary is the best of the 5. Now, we started doing a little more work, and we'll continue to bring those things up as we try to negotiate the contract. If the board decides to move forward tonight, try to get more clarity on things that are unanswered. But what you have before you tonight is the next stage in the process that we agreed upon. We had a timeline. We said we would do this on May 6th or May 13th. This is your first chance. I think all the I's and T's are dotted to get you at least to a point tonight where if you took action, it would be something that we could bring forward to the commissioner. We were specifically directed by the board to seek authority from the board before we could start negotiating the contract. But as the board knows, or as we did as an RFP committee, if y'all remember the RFP committee or work group, we took a lot of effort on the front end to put those key things in the terms and conditions in the RFP so there would be no surprises for the partnering entity on the backside. And there are other things that we have to talk about. I've shared, governance structures, making sure we understand the money piece, making sure that everybody has all the qualifications that they need to be able to work in the state of Texas, and so on and so forth. But I don't think that those are things that are impossible to overcome in time to put together a potential contract. But all of those things were front-loaded as much as possible in that RFP. And what would go in the contract are those things that are in the RFP that we've already been able to kind of settle on paper and move them directly into the contract. And then we will work on anything else that was outstanding. As you know, that any contract that exceeds $50,000 a year must have board approval. So this is one of the contracts that the administration could not sign off on. We anticipate that it's going to be more than $50,000. And therefore, while you do not have a contract before you here tonight, right, what we would do is work as swiftly as we could to get a contract to the board, even if in draft form, so you could see it at many or the right critical touch point moments so that you could then move as quickly as possible, maybe May 13th, but hopefully no later than May 20th on the contract as well. Now, I just want to put the caveat that, that's, I know, difficult for people to, still digest sometimes, but all of these things, it is written in the RFP proposal, are contingent on the support of the commissioner. So while I know I've heard multiple times that folks don't necessarily want to hear that or read about that in our agenda items, this board knows that we have a reality in front of us that we still have to go to the commissioner and the TEA to seek approval. This administration, including the superintendent, is committed to finding a pathway forward to ensure that our kids are as successful as possible in Eastside Memorial. We'll carry out the board's direction. You'll need to, if you don't take action tonight, you'll need to give us other direction about what you would want us to do for May 13th if there's not an action this evening. It is scheduled for possible action But we want to try to take as much as possible to the commissioner this week, so they have a sense of what we're doing and where we are, and allow that to, get the TEA moving so they can make a decision by the end of the school year. But we'll have to come back again with the contract, and I would anticipate that if he approves the entity, that the contract is really our business to manage, but we can't say that for sure, so it's in the RFP that we have to take all this stuff to the commissioner. But Mr. President, that concludes our remarks, and y'all are ready for discussion.
Okay, on behalf of the board, I too want to express our appreciation for all of the committee members that served on the evaluation committee. I hope you appreciate sort of the long hours that it takes for us to get something done, and the amount of volunteer effort. So I really appreciate that. And for those people who volunteered to serve but maybe didn't make it, thank you for doing that, because that's important too, because we also need to have those folks to be around in case we need alternates. And then finally, I too want to thank Mr. Weeks and Austin Voices for their help in this. They certainly have been a tremendous asset to us, so thank you very much for doing that. Okay, with that, I'll open it up for discussion. Dr. Mathias?
Is the president willing to accept a motion?
Absolutely.
Be it moved that the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District approve and authorize the administration to negotiate a contract with Talent Development Secondary, a program of Johns Hopkins University, as the partnering entity for Eastside Memorial High School.
Is the motion, is there a second? Second. Second by Ms. Teisch. Okay, any discussion? Mr. Mathias, you have the first option for any discussion.
Sure. What a delight it has been to see the community rallying around Talent Development Secondary of Johns Hopkins Institute. As a trustee, I simply want to be able to thank our administration. It has been quite a journey. Us as trustees working on the RFP evaluation, on the RFP work group with the administration, and for us to have arrived at this point with the support that we see from the community is a tremendous sign. So we want to thank all who've been involved in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barksdale.
Thank you. I also want to thank everyone who was involved in getting us to this point. Just a point of process, if the board were to approve tonight for the administration to move forward with contract negotiations, that doesn't preclude us to continue with discovery in terms of things we need to know about the partner, waiting to hear back on other things regarding references, perhaps visiting the school. That process would continue, right?
That is correct.
So, but to stay on our timeline, it sounds like it's prudent to me to keep our options open, to keep moving forward, and approve tonight your motion to begin negotiations. We have a serious timeline staring us down. Thank you.
Ms. Hinojosa.
Okay, well, I have to say that in January, when I learned we had to find a partner by the end of May to be in Eastside Memorial, I was a little bit skeptical. I was a little bit afraid. I really wanted to believe Trustee Mathias that he believed, he had faith that it was going to work out, but I wasn't quite sure. And so that we've gotten here, in my mind, is short of a miracle. And I think community coming together, working with the administration, working with parents and teachers and principals, and doing this hard work, I think that in itself was a demonstration of a miracle. And I'm so grateful for countless hours that were put in by staff and parents and teachers and the administration. I feel extremely hopeful and proud to be a part of this. The information I've gotten on Johns Hopkins, while they might not be exactly, they might be under a different accountability system, might not be exactly under the same, operating under the same standards in other places. I think that the information I've seen makes me feel very positive about them. I've learned some interesting and very, very positive things about this organization. I was pleased to see that one of their lead researcher, a man by the name of, I'm going to get this wrong because I can't find my notes at this time, but what is it? No, that's not it. Hold on. I know it's not Banzef because I was my law school professor, but it was something like that. But that he was recognized by the White House. Here it is. His name is Bob Balfans, who's a senior researcher for this group. He is among 10 education leaders recently named a champion of change by the White House for his commitment to furthering education among African Americans. That makes me very hopeful and makes me think that we're on the right track here. They have a 15-year track record with challenges similar to what we're experiencing. And I think it's positive that even though RFP didn't ask for a middle school partner, they have extensive background and experience working with middle schools, and they responded in an RFP, they responded at the community meeting that they in fact were very open and positive to exploring furthering this partnership to include the work that's going on in the middle schools, should that be something that we decide to pursue. They obviously believe it's an important component, as we do, to ensuring success at the high school. I think it's really worth noting that what we're doing here is accelerating the time frame by which we're going to do work at Eastside Memorial under this new partner. I think that was always the intent of the reconstitution plan, is to put the work, the resources at Eastside Memorial where the kids are struggling now. One thing I would like to see, I know there is a lot of concern about the vertical team or the feeder schools that feed into Eastside Memorial, but I've looked through all of our documentation that we receive from the administration, and what I can't find, and I don't know if it's ever been identified, is what schools the kids who are struggling the most at Eastside Memorial come from. I mean, I know we know overall where kids at Eastside Memorial are coming from, but there are some kids who are excelling and doing really well. But I want to know, where are these other kids who are really struggling coming from? Are they coming from AISD schools? I mean, it strikes me that we have 4 out of our 8 elementary schools are recognized in this feeder pattern. So we're doing some really good things. We're doing some really good things in this vertical team, in this district. And so I think it's worthwhile exploring. And I think part of what we need to do if we vote tonight, and I hope we all do vote tonight to partner with Johns Hopkins or pursue a contract with Johns Hopkins, I think this is just the beginning. I think we really need to look more broadly for our opportunities with other partnerships or other great entities that potentially we could partner with at Eastside Memorial. They have a record of partnering. We mentioned communities and schools. I like that they are open to this and that they have a history of doing this. There are other things we need to look at. We need to look at what's going on in the feeder schools. We need to look at what are other needs that kids and community need in this high school. I think that Austin Voice's work is tremendous. I'm so thankful for it. And I think we have a foundation upon which to build and explore in figuring out some of these problems. I repeatedly hear a desire, a need for more CTE options at Eastside Memorial. And I like that Johns Hopkins has a track record of working in programs that offer this. I think this is something that we need to explore more for these kids, but more in this district as a whole, because that is something I repeatedly hear that we need. Again, I just want to say how thankful I am. I feel like people have moved heaven and earth. This administration has moved heaven and earth to meet this time frame. It's short of a miracle, maybe a miracle. I think we need to move quickly. We don't have time to waste. I actually wish we had maybe had this conversation at our last meeting, because I feel the urgency of moving forward. One more thing I want to say about this partner that I think is really important to me. I like that they focus on the whole child. That is a concept that we as a district have been supportive of and have identified as a priority. And I think that we need to recognize that that we could hold for many of these children the best opportunity they get for these full enriching experiences that are going to contribute to them being healthy, strong, successful adults. And I think we need to take that seriously and embrace that, and I think we owe it to these kids. So I'm glad to see that this is an approach of this partner. So with that, I would like to just wholeheartedly endorse Trustee Mathias's motion, and I hope that we can move forward with it exponentially. Thank you.
Ms. Moya.
Thank you. Not to drag the acknowledgments and thank yous out too much, so I'll just ditto what my colleagues have said about the appreciation we have for all the work that's been done, not only by the committees but by the administration staff, and also not the least of which is our community. There were several comments made during citizens communication, and Trustee Hinojosa, you mentioned one of them, which was hopeful. And I have to say that I'm always hopeful with everything that we have tried to do to increase the performance and success at Eastside Memorial and every other school in the district. So again, yet I still remain hopeful. But I must say, for those of you who don't know, I'm a major high school fan. And so not that I'm not a fan of middle school and elementary, but high school has been a passion of mine for a long time, because it seems to me that at the high school level, there's not as much support from families and community or from whatever as there is in elementary school, and it starts to dwindle off in middle school. But so you know, I so appreciate the comments that are made on a regular basis supporting our high school students, because they need it just as much as our first graders. And so I want to thank everyone who has a passion and speaks openly and publicly about the abilities and of our high school students, because they are by no stretch of the imagination incredibly awesome. And so, not to belabor a lot of things from the past, but I will say that over the years we've heard many times that there have not been the financial investments in Eastside Memorial, and I have to beg to differ, because the financial resources have been there. I'm not an educator, so I cannot explain everything that has not gone the way it was designed. But I will say that there is not a school in this district that the trustees and the administration does not support and does not make an investment in. So I want everybody to know that, because there's oftentimes that things are said that we don't often have a chance to comment on, and so I felt like it was necessary to say that, because Eastside Memorial has not been at the bottom of anybody's list ever that I know of. Certainly wouldn't be on mine, since it was Johnston High School when I was in high school here in Austin, went to Travis. I have reservations about some of the shortcomings and the weaknesses that the evaluation team outlined. And, you know, but as Trustee Barksdale said, you know, even after the vote tonight, we can continue with discovery and continue with more research and things like that. And I'm going to depend on us to do that, because I need a comfort level, you know, to move on. But I do believe that, you know, I want to believe, you know, in my heart of hearts that that this is the right thing to do. And I'm going to have to put my trust in those that have done a lot more work and know a lot more about this entity than I do, because some of you were in the trenches working on it and I was not. So I'm going to trust you and continue to do my due diligence as well. I intend to support this. because I too believe that the students at Eastside Memorial and all our other high school students deserve the best possible opportunity for the best possible education we can provide them. Thank you.
Ms. Tice.
I also want to add my thanks to the community, to the RFP evaluation committee, to all the people who worked so long on this process, and in particular the students at Eastside Memorial who have stood up for what they think is best for their schools. I want to state that, speaking from as a former educator, that what struck me the most about the proposal from Johns Hopkins Talent Development Secondary was that they would treat existing teachers and staff as professionals and would ask their opinion and would collaborate with them rather than replace them, and that they would respect the students in the community at that school and would collaborate with them. And I think that's a big element for me in supporting this particular proposal. I think that this board owes it to the hard work and the discernment of the evaluation committee, the RFP evaluation committee, to vote 9-0 to support the Johns Hopkins Talent Development Secondary proposal. In addition to that, I would respectfully ask if this passes, if the vote goes that way, that this board consider preparing a letter of support for the process, for what's been going on at Eastside Memorial, for the RFP process, and to send that letter to the commissioner, because the board has really not had a voice, an articulated voice, other than that first meeting that Superintendent Karstafen alluded to. And I would ask that our board officers create that letter and that they reference some positives about Eastside Memorial and the RFP process, the involvement of the community, which I think is critical to this. And so I would strongly urge the officers to consider that and then to bring that letter to the board for review and then send that on to the commissioner in support of our decision.
Ms. Ellen.
Well, in all my volunteer years of work, I've realized it's very easy to complain about a lack of community engagement. It's a whole nother thing to step up and actually participate. So I too really want to thank the parents, the teachers, the staff, the students, the community for stepping up. This has really changed, and I'm encouraged by the new direction of what we might now be considering as real community engagement in our decision-making processes. So I'm pretty consistent. I support our planning committees when we do engage our community, and I too support the evaluation committee in this. So thank you.
Okay. Ms. Bradley.
First of all, I want to thank you, Ms. Barksdale, for your comments, because I was right on. If you hadn't said it, I was going to ask the same thing, so I really appreciate that. I guess first off, I read the presentation, and I read it thoroughly. I even went back and I did have a conversation with Ms. Reuter. And it probably was a longer conversation than you were expecting, probably, wasn't it? And one of the things that I did tell her that I was going to say tonight, and I'm going to continue to say that, because although I do not agree with everyone that came to the mic and spoke, anytime that we feel that every school that we have is all right and everything is working well with them, but we can still get kids to high school and they're not reading on grade level or performing on grade level, something happened somewhere. Now, we don't owe anybody a 9-0 vote, but what we do owe the children of this district is a quality education at every level they attempt. They need to go from elementary to high school on grade level. It's as simple as that. And I don't understand why this is so difficult. It's just that simple. So we have got to look. I do agree with what I heard you say, Ms. Henhouse. We do need to look at, we need to drill down to find out where the struggle is so that we can repair it. We've got to do that, because if we don't, I don't care what you put in here, whether you put the other one that no one cared for, whether you put John Hopkins in here, whether you put IDEA, and you put anyone in here, if we have not fixed the pipeline, if we have not repaired the pipeline, this is not going to be successful either. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we will be back at this table, not me, but some of you all will be back at this table having this very discussion. So we have got to make this a vertical team effort. We have no choice. So I'm not saying that I do not support this, because I know we have to support something. But I do know that while we're doing this, we had better be doing something else parallel, because otherwise this is going to fail. And I'm not going to bet anything on it, but we better fix that pipeline, and we better start having those conversations, not just for Eastside Memorial, but any other vertical team we're having struggles in. This has to be a district-wide effort. Simple as that.
Mr. Snyder.
This is a change. I get to go last instead of first. It's one of these nights I'm going to have to mark down. I'm also at a place where I can support this, but I got some reservations. And I do want to talk a little bit about the timeline and contract from this point forward as well. Let me just be clear about the reservations. I totally agree with the process. Great way to do things. I wish we had done this and could do this on everything we do. I mean, I'm totally there. Great job. Want to see more of it. Reservations are some of the same things that were cited by the RFP committee. I mean, you know, we see the data, superintendent sees the data. I guarantee the commissioner sees the data too. So, you know, I think we need to be realistic about where we're going to end up. And, you know, I hope that this is something that is going to work. But I don't think it's going to be a slam dunk on anybody's part. Some of the other problems I see are the meeting on the 20th, I think it was, when John Hopkins was talking about how they had done in other places, and I don't remember what the specific schools were, the specific district. I want to say it was a California school for some reason. But they said the reason it failed was because the model wasn't implemented with fidelity. If you guys have followed the way AISD has tried to redo schools, solve some of the problems that we faced, we're great at not following things with fidelity. I mean, we've got that down pat, and you know it's a known problem. So I mean, we're really going to have to watch what we do, how we do it, even in our contract in terms of, you know, giving authority for teachers and administrators. So I do have reservations. Also with Ms. Bradley. You know, for those of you who may or may not know what went on when Johnson was closed, there was clear data that had been prepared by the district at the request of someone in the legislature that showed that a significant, I mean, extremely significant amount of kids were not at grade level. I mean, it was down to the point where in the senior class, there were 2 kids that were reading and writing at grade level. So it is a problem that is percolating up from the vertical team, and something we need to address. I mean, I'm at a place where, you know, we not only need to work on that part of the vertical team problem, but we need to work on other aspects of it, such as the district's transfer policy, maybe redoing some of our boundaries to go in and make sure we've got schools that really have a representative sample. And I really hope that, you know, after we get this approved, and I do hope we get it approved, that we take that initiative and that next step and start working on things to work past the year or 2 that we're going to get here. And, you know, I hope that it's not a year or 2. I mean, that John Hopkins comes in and does what they need to do to get that school off the commissioner's list and the TEA's list. But, I mean, I'm also looking at it historically and knowing that, you know, what passed in the legislature today says we have 2 or 3 years, depending on what the conference committee works out, to turn this around, or else it falls into something else that, we don't know what the full shape of it is right now. So while it's great to work for really good solutions, we also have to make sure that the solutions totally fix what the problem is. And unfortunately, in our case, the problem is being dictated by the legislature. So, I do want to be in the same boat that Ms. Barksdale came up with as well, that we continue to look, we continue to evaluate, we continue to talk about the contract. But, this is what we need to move forward with right now. I'm convinced and at that point. Now, on to the contract. Only one?
You made the comment that, we see the data, y'all see that we'll see more data as we continue to do diligence and discovery. There'll be more things that emerge. We'll have a very small window to take a shot with our best thinking. So for tonight's purposes, I just want to, just kind of want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying take forward the best possible strategy we can get approved tonight to the commissioner as soon as possible, to Ms. Hinojosa's point. Is that what we're saying?
That
Okay.
is what I intend.
Okay,
But, my point is
Yep.
that the flaws or supposed flaws that,
Yeah.
what page is it on here?
Yeah, I know.
No.
Yeah.
Right. So we all know what we're talking about. That not only are we looking at those, they looked at those and found them. TEA is going to look at them and find the same thing, is what it comes down to.
Okay, but tonight, we're going to try to take our best proposal forward with what we've got. And at some point, I know there's a motion on the floor, so we're going to get to a potential action. And then, but to your point about they're looking at other stuff, you mean they're looking at the same stuff we're looking
Same
at?
stuff,
So we know it's not going to be like, a clear-cut, easy win. We'll have to talk through it and make sure. Yeah, I just want to be clear. For anybody, any teacher, somebody out there, Eastside Memorial, hands down, outperforms that Baltimore high school. Hands down. Double and 3 times almost as much of percent pass rates than the Baltimore high school. So I know our people are doing a great job and much better than what we've seen in the performance there. But knowing that we have the partner piece, just so I don't lose this, if we're there and we know that, and I know we know that we're better, and this does not move forward as a partner, do y'all have any other thoughts, like another notion I could put to the commissioner? Like, do we want to still ask for more time? I mean, like, just so we don't miss an opportunity to ask?
Why don't we wait till we take
Okay.
action on this? and then
I'd love to, just so we do the most we can with the time we have with them. Okay.
Mr. Schneider, please
On
continue.
to the contract. I got a little bit of a concern in terms of, my understanding is if we vote on this tonight, the next vote will be next Monday when we would approve the contract. Is that?
Well, it could be a little later if.
Okay. I mean, we don't have a contract as such that, here's the final deal that, we're going to be asked to approve. And, I realize next Monday is next Monday, but, we get information in terms of here's what the final thing is for Monday night on Thursday night, which leaves Friday.
Tuesday. You'll get it when we can.
that's
We do it
for-
on Tuesday.
I understand, but,
Referring to the contract.
one of my concerns with that process is that all too often we see a Tuesday and then agenda items change, which doesn't happen a lot, but it
It
has
does
happened.
not.
Right, so
It really doesn't.
I know, but
Okay.
it has happened.
But this is a timeline that we created, and we're doing our
I know.
best to
So-
crank it out as fast as possible.
I am simply asking that we wait until the regular meeting on the 20th to take a final vote on a final version of the contract. When we're talking about $500,000 a year here, which is what we're doing, and we have, issues such as the governance piece, I would like to talk about performance monitoring as well, because I'd really like to make sure that we do have measurable, substantial progress on an annual basis, and we have a way of reviewing that they agree to as well. So,
May I ask?
Sure.
The, whatever vote, let's assume this passes tonight. Will that information start to go to the commissioner, or does it have to wait for the contract before the information goes to the commissioner?
No, my guidance from the commissioner was every action that the board takes, he welcomes me sending it right away. So what we would do tomorrow morning, just like we did with the contingency plan, is we turn around and send it, and I've already made a request that they hold time on their calendars this week to see us as soon as possible. But it was not the contract that he limited us to in having that meeting. It was an action on a partnering entity.
So, to your point, Mr. Snyder, it would be possible to actually take action on the contract on the 20th as opposed to the 13th.
May I? But just as far as we're concerned as an administration, what we'd like to do is work as quickly as possible, get a contract put together, and if you can take action at your next meeting, take that action. The more actions this board takes that gives us a clear pathway forward to talk in real terms with the commissioner, I think gets us back to the best proposal to the TEA. So I just want to, we're not going to rush, but we are working to get it to y'all for the 16th, 13th, and then the 20th is the backup.
To Mr. Snyder's point, I was just trying to clarify that there isn't anything magical about the 13th, but the 20th would work as well from the standpoint of the commissioner.
Yes, but remember, as we wrote in the, we wrote in the RFP, all of this is contingent on his approval.
Exactly.
So that's the piece that I don't want us to waste a day and not get it in his hands. And so I understand that people want to discuss and everything, but we will work to try to honor that Tuesday piece, where when we upload it in draft, and we will try to make minimal changes, but we will be working day and night to get that contract done.
and Dr. Schwartzman, from my viewpoint, if the only thing the commissioner requires is a partnering entity, that we vote on that tonight. Here's your partnering entity, and that we have then time to work out the details of the contract. And I mean, I don't have any desire to do this, but I mean, there's nothing that would stop us from pushing into June if we wanted to.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. As I said, I don't have a desire. I'm just telling you that.
So I'm just saying, you remember, for those who worked on the work group for the RFP, right? It's all of this is contingent on his approval. I think if you tell him that you're going into June with the contract, it's not done. I mean, we don't have the contract done. I highly recommend that you get it done when it's ready. We will do all that we can, and don't even start thinking about June. Really stay focused on May. June is like not a good idea. The end of the school year will be here. Okay, I've said my piece.
But
okay,
from my perspective, it's we've approved the partnering entity, and we need a contract. And as a board member that's approving a contract for something this important that needs to get done, that's $500,000. I want to take a good look at it. I mean, I want to know that what I want in there and need in there is in that paper. So,
Ms. Hinojosa.
I want to say a few things in response to Trustee Schneider, some of your comments in response from Dr. Karstafen. I think it's important to note that Johns Hopkins works in schools that take all kids. So they're not a magnet, they're not cherry picking. I think that is an important distinction of Johns Hopkins. I think we need to recognize that. And the data demonstrates that they make significant improvements with these kids who are, and as we've heard, they're dealing with issues that we're not even dealing with, at least not near to the extent that they're dealing with, like violence, right? And that just the safety of the child in the school. So, I mean, I think that we need to understand that. I agree wholeheartedly that amazing work is being done by our staff and teachers at Eastside Memorial. But frankly, at this point, maybe it's just been beat into me enough. I welcome an opportunity to partner with with a nationally recognized partner that brings the prestige of their name and their work and lets our kids know that we're looking for the very best for them. And so at this point, I can't bring myself to say that I'm glad that the commissioner is making us do this, but at this point, I welcome it. I think it's good. I think it's positive. I'm not, for me, I just think we should move forward. It's not a fallback position. I think that this is a strong partner. And I think it's worth noting that just in all the schools in Baltimore where they operate, their graduation rates are among the top 5 of all schools in Baltimore. I think that's substantial. I think there's a lot of positive data out there that supports our decision. That's it.
Well, Trustee Hinojosa, I didn't mean to intend in any way to imply that John Hopkins is only selecting certain kids, or it's a magnet, or anything else along those lines. But I strongly believe that part of the problem with that school in particular, and multiple schools within that vertical team, specifically Martin is another one that falls into that category. I mean, our transfer policy, while it positively helps some schools, it negatively impacts this school in particular. And I think it's something we strongly need to take a look at and make changes to correct that particular problem. You know, I've seen the data as well as you have on what's going on here. The only thing I can say is you've got Maryland's accountability system on one hand, Texas is on the other, various pathways to get to graduation that aren't available in the Texas system. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, I only know what the data shows me, and that is largely how I make decisions like this. I mean, what does the data tell me? What's the best way to move forward? So, you know, again, I really hope that this is the answer to the problem, and 2 years from now or 3 years from now, I mean, you know, this discussion isn't going on again. But at the same time, I'm in a place where for over a decade we've been talking about this, or some of us have been talking about this, and it's time to do something. It's time to change the pattern and really fix what needs to be fixed so this doesn't keep popping up on our radar.
Okay, any further discussion? Ms. Sparksdale.
While I wholeheartedly agree with Trustee Hinojosa, I wanted to hear more about what the superintendent had to say in terms of, you asked us to kind of hold this off for the rest of the discussion, but in terms of any other things we want to think about or things we want to kind of to keep tracking on with regard, but it may be for a separate discussion after this. I think you said you wanted to wait until after.
Well, I think what she was suggesting is if we don't approve this, then, and I said, let's just wait to see if we don't approve it, but if we approve it, then it's a moot point.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant.
Okay, then what do you mean?
I'm assuming, given the way the conversation's gone, that it's likely that we'll have an entity tonight. We'll see how the vote goes. But my question was similar, is aligned to what you said, and it was, you know, that this is our part, but we still have to work through and with the commissioner, and if there were any other, you know, directions that if this is not close enough to the expectations that he had to be able to satisfy the things that he talked to the officers and the superintendent at the very beginning about, then are there other ideas or direction the board wants to give me to ensure that I continue to relay to the commissioner? And my example was, do we still want to continue to say, you know, if not this, can we have more time? You know, if not this, I know in the contingency plan we had, you know, a 1-year phase out, but if you're not thinking about closure, but you're still thinking about the future, were there other things the board wanted to reiterate with me to have available with your blessing, if you will, to be able to share with him?
I think I understand what you're saying. My desire is to keep this school open, period, bottom line, and functioning and working well for children. That's my desire. But, and with that, I do know that we're vulnerable to what we are at the commissioner's mercy. And I think that the evaluation committee and this community and so many people just kind of put their back into this and have gotten a Herculean effort, as Trustee Hinojosa said, to get to where we are today, to where it didn't seem possible in January, and now here we are early May, and we have a partner that is selected that does have a top 5 graduation rate, that does make significant gains with kids who come in a lot more difficult circumstances than our kids do here in Austin. We have a partner we can believe in. I believe that. However, we are subject to what the commissioner says. Is there a separate track we can keep on going where we say, options, Commissioner, if this doesn't work for you, we have done our best effort, our best work as a community. I mean, there are TV spots running right now talking about a parent trigger. I don't know what more this community could do in terms of saying, we are behind the school. The door's been open to where the board has done that as well as the staff. If something happens and this doesn't meet muster, can we say, yes, we would like more time to consider what our next option is, just to keep the door open? I don't want to burn all our daylight and be to where we don't have another option. I don't think we can fix that. I can't solve that. I don't have an idea about what that would be, but it would start with more time. I'm okay with that conversation. If this option is buttoned up, we're on the table, we have delivered what the commissioner has asked for, a partner that will work for the kids and it will keep our school open and functioning and serving children well. If he rejects that, our next option begins with more time. That's where I sit.
Yeah, and my question was, and was there anything else that people have been thinking about that might help us should we have to have the other conversation? So
we have our parameters as I understand them. If there's an opportunity, if the commissioner reconsider, given I think what is a more than a good faith effort, this is true due diligence toward delivering what the commissioner has asked for. If there is an opportunity to say, can AISD have a year to work on this with its own staff, that would be something I would be interested in if he finds the partner not acceptable. If and only if, to your point, Trustee Hinojosa, not necessarily gleeful about it, but at this point welcome it. So with the partnerships with peace, but more time and some opportunity to do this, maybe even as this same contract with our current staff. I'm not sure what that would look like, but I don't want to close the door on the school.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. I too want to both respect and appreciate the work of the RFP evaluation committee. I think their recommendation is one that I'm going to support as well, and I do so also recognizing the points that they have made with regard to weaknesses in the John Hopkins Talent Development Secondary Program. And I do think we need to continue to work to strengthen all of the schools in the vertical team, simply because if we're not getting the performance that we are expecting in all of the vertical team, then when you compare that to other vertical teams, you really see much stronger elementary or feeder schools. And so we need to continue. That's something that we want to do all across the district, whether it's Eastside Memorial or any other vertical team, to continue to strengthen our vertical teams. So I think that's an important point, regardless of this particular entity or any others. So we have a motion to approve the selection of John Hopkins Talent Development Secondary and to authorize the administration to negotiate a contract. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes unanimously by everyone on the dais. Okay. Ms. Pike.
I just wanted to reiterate the suggestion I made about the letter. I think that would be very helpful, showing that we support this and that we have done our due diligence and that we have community support for this partner. And I think it's time for this board to articulate to the commissioner our feelings of support for this process and for this partner. You want me to? Okay. May I make a motion to that effect?
Yeah.
Okay.
Council, would a motion on that particular request be within the bounds of our posted item? Okay.
So I so move that the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District direct the officers, the President, Vice President, and Secretary, to craft a letter to Commissioner Williams stating support for the partner that was voted upon tonight, and also articulating what has been done, somewhat of the process, not the entire process, but a summary of the process that got us to this point tonight, and that we have engaged the community and they are supportive, and that ultimately we are working for the best of our Eastside Memorial students. I'm sorry. I'll slow down. And that our ultimate goal is to keep Eastside Memorial open. And successful for kids. Thank you, Superintendent.
Does that conclude your motion yet?
Yes, it does. Don't ask me to repeat. You got it? Thank you very much.
We now have the letter.
Students. Yes.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Mathias. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, I'd like to come back to what Ms. Barksdale raised, and now that I understand the point that the superintendent was making, are there any other items like that? I find it, other than time, I find it a little difficult to try to anticipate how to respond to that, only because it depends on what the commissioner is going to possibly suggest. So I personally don't have another thought other than time, because everything else is sort of like, yeah, but what did he say about X, or why did he turn it down, or so I'm not sure I can provide any advice. Mr. Snyder.
Dr. Sharfin, the point I made about implementation with fidelity, is there any of the models that we tried there previously, New Tech as an example, that if we were to go back to them and say, it's yours, we're not going to question, ask, whatever, that might be something that would be considered in lieu of doing other actions? If again, back to the if and only if clause, that we get to that point.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of the area I just wanted to hear the board discuss. You do have some programs and partnerships that we've tried to work with, have some relationships with that are also research-based and well-known. New Tech is one of them. So if this one isn't quite there, I guess the question is, yes, more time, but it's more of more time, and we'd still like to work with our staff. We'd still like to, bring back some of the other former partnerships, relationships, programs, and reinvigorate them even more. I think, yes, this is the high school piece, but he has talked a lot about the feeder. There's nothing about any details on what Ms. Bradley has raised, but certainly what I know the commissioner has raised, including with our officers, that gets us to the feeder piece. One of the things that I know we're going to talk about on the 13th are potential uses for the facility, and again, it gives us an opportunity to try to think about the feeder piece. If he knows that we are still trying to work that in, and maybe if not at the start of next year, the year after, if we did these elements, while we may not have the solution, putting some of those elements on the table so that it's not like we're throwing a dart in the dark. So I think what you mentioned, Trustee Schneider, about New Tech, I think we should raise the potential use of, for academic purposes, Allen Elementary School. Are there anything we can think about to help the feeder piece? We're continuing with the commitment in strengthening the Eastside Memorial and Travis vertical teams. And for 9th and 10th graders, that's a $2,800 on top of the per pupil allocation for Eastside Memorial 9th and 10th graders that we do with high dosage tutoring. It comes out to be about that much. So there's some things that, that I think would be, if we could package them and say that not only are we going to continue to do these, but we're really going to still, work with our staff and get supports in. That may not be the permanent solution, but could be the pathway forward to getting more time. And, just to ensure that we don't go in like, well, if we don't have this, then we have nothing, and it leaves us with only one other consideration.
Ms. Marshall, then Ms. Tice.
Okay, I'll wrap us up because I know we're off agenda right now, but I would say I did think of a caveat that is critically important to me, and that is similar process to what we had to get to where we are tonight. We must have community involvement and support, or else we are in a world of hurt. And it is bound by if and only if we need the second option. So that's my interest there.
Ms. Tice.
And I completely agree that we need to work to strengthen our K-8 program, and I would say that we have a model here in the district already. We have a Title I school that's a blue ribbon school, and there is a technique that's being used there I think that we would be well served to look at and to implement that in some of our schools in the Eastside feeder team. And I think that that's a proven program, and it's certainly that blue ribbon status, and its principal was recognized as one of the 7 top administrators in the country. So I think we've got a model here to work with, and I think that we could move that into some of our feeder schools in Eastside Memorial without much difficulty.
Any other thoughts? Ms. Bradley?
I think we've had some things that have come up from the community. We had one idea of a dual language K-8 program. Also, with what I was hearing Mr. Schneider speak of with New Tech, we also heard someone step up and said the signature program of that vertical team was STEM program. So maybe we could have an articulated program, that's a STEM program with New Tech High being at the high school level. The other thing is Martin at one point was an IB school. And I'm not particularly sure if we still have that relationship. You're saying no, we do. No, okay. And that's disappointing. No, I know. But that's disappointing. So at one point, Martin was an IB program. So there are some things we can do.
Ms. Moya?
I just have a question for the superintendent. If Allen were to become a middle school again, what kind of impact would that have on Martin? Because my concern is when we talk about things like that is whether or not doing something like that would cause another school to become under-enrolled. And so I was just wondering about that. I don't need an answer today, some other time, as we start working through things. Also, I think, Ms. Tice, if you were talking about Graham, it'd be interesting to know if any of the schools in the Eastside Memorial Vertical Team are currently using that methodology, because I know that there are schools around the district that are using it. I just don't know if there's any there.
Right, so I'll be very quick, and I know we're not necessarily, it's for the agenda next week, but depending on how you design the program for the other middle school, it could or could not impact Martin. So if you're designing it where you're targeting an effort that brings kids in from other places, then that's different. But to the piece that you mentioned for the math, it's math and it has some reading elements. And I have been working with representatives of the school to try to figure out if it is the right pathway. Again, if you really want to try to work through community engagement in a way that makes sense, and we've presented this to all administrators and vertical teams, and the Eastside Memorial vertical team leadership has seen the proposals as well. Depending on what the school is and what people are trying to do, sometimes there's interest, and those schools have done it. Others, they are not. So in the case of the Eastside Memorial vertical team, we have not had, I would say, like specific takers for the whole program, but we are trying to find a way to, as Nicole Conley-Abram, says all the time, she's like, we need an incubator when we find best practices in AISD on how we might be able to scale those up, which will be of less cost, and also you're working with a known, you know the people that are doing it, and trying to get that structured and funded is a tough time for us because we have a shortfall, but we have brought that one forward to try to figure out how we can do it. And what's most important is that we take the time to let the school communities really understand it, and most importantly, the teachers. If you are a language learner, right? I mean, if you're a language learner, it is very different. It's a different philosophy to how we work with students who are language learners. So it has benefits, but it also has some edge to it that depending on the school community, you may or may not want that. So we've been vetting it, and so I'm not, and we have schools, we have scaled it up to different schools throughout the system, but it has been at their agreement, coming both ways on the issue, not forcing it on a school. So
Okay.
we have 4 or 5 that are.
All right, let me bring us back to Eastside, and if there are no further questions, I think we've strayed from the main subject, so, okay. All right, this concludes the televised portion of tonight's meeting, and I want to thank everyone and thank all of our community members for being here tonight. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.